Welcome to Something to Talk About from the Bainbridge Island Senior and Community Center. I'm Reed Price. I'm the director of the center. Today, the director of the Kitsap Community Foundation, Tina O'Brien, is with us. We're going to talk about thoughtful planning about your estate. Actually, Washington now has the highest state estate tax in the nation. And with changes coming up next year, even more families will be affected. Tina is working on helping people understand that, and there's actually an event coming up on October 19th, and we'll learn more about that in just a minute. First, I want to thank Fieldstone Communities of Bainbridge Island for being a sponsor of Something to Talk About. Fieldstone offers independent living, assisted living, and memory care. They're located up on Rolling Bay, right around the corner from Bay Hay and Feed, and they'd love to give you a tour. Give them a call at 206-594-1010. Ask for Randy or Sierra, and they'll arrange a tour and even treat you to a meal. You can also ask about day and respite care programs. The website is fieldstonecommunities.com. And we would like to acknowledge that we are meeting on the ancestral homeland of the Suquamish, the people of the clear salt water, who have been living on the Saley Sea since time immemorial. And we are grateful for their stewardship. And we should be working anyway to be better stewards. And they certainly are willing to help us with that. Tina, thank you for helping us try to make sense of planning for our futures. And as a participating Kitsap County nonprofit, we appreciate the help that you are giving to potential donors and philanthropists in our community.
Well, we're happy to help. Thanks so much for inviting me for this conversation.
So tell me a little bit about what the nature of estate taxes are in Washington State and why it warrants paying attention at this time.
Yeah, so as many people know, Washington State had some recent tax changes that were implemented in July. And so we now have the highest estate tax in the nation. And so that pretty significantly affects a number of estates because the amounts that are now going to be taxed have changed, and at the highest levels, the rate at tax that estates will be taxed are significantly higher. And so, so if it's helpful, can I just talk about the Kitsap Community Foundation for a minute? Because I think folks might be familiar with the Bainbridge Community Foundation, who of course is a great colleague of ours and we support. But our foundation, every community foundation is a little bit different. So our foundation really focuses on three things. One is helping nonprofits learn best practices and raise revenue so that they can focus on their missions. And so we do that through the Kitsap Great Give, which is probably our best known initiative across the county. We do it through something called the Kitsap Center for Nonprofit Excellence. We have these community conversations, which is this one that we have coming up on Sunday, where we can help nonprofits invite their donors and volunteers to learn in a safe, no pressure environment about estate planning 101. And we also, of course, work with donors, providing donor advised funds and designated funds, endowments for nonprofits. And we have our own grant cycle. It works differently than Bainbridge Community Foundation's works, but essentially the focus is to get money to the places that are needed by the people who care about those causes. And so, we think especially now, given the changes in the federal tax structures and the state tax structures, it's important to provide an education so that folks can understand what's about to hit them and can avoid some of the pitfalls that we've learned about just even in the last couple of months.
And when you say pitfalls, are these new pitfalls based on the law or just the kind of challenges that we always face when we're trying to figure out how to be generous, take care of ourselves, take care of our own families, and also think about things that often for people are the last thing they think about. They kind of put off some of these decisions about their estate or tax issues.
Yeah, so it's both actually. So we know that 7 in 10 people don't have a current will. And if you don't have a current will, then the state gets to decide what happens to your assets. And so the simplest thing people can do is to complete a will. And so, of course, if you have assets of $3 million or more, probably makes sense to assemble a team of professional advisors and, a CPA or a estate planning attorney, maybe a life insurance person, and work out the plan that makes the most sense for your particular situation. Our staff and board over the last 2 years has really leaned in, and now we're offering a service called freewill.com. So anyone in Kitsap, really anyone, anywhere, can go to our website. At the very top of our website, there's a slide. You can click in there and you can do your will for free in 20 minutes. And we're leaning into this because folks have told us that they don't do a will because it's too hard, it's too expensive, and they don't have enough assets. And none of those things are true. And this just eliminates all of those barriers for folks. So even if you have an intention to meet with a professional advisor at some point, but you don't have a current will now, you can take 20 minutes and go through this very straightforward process and learn about and get the documents in line. My daughter, who's now 24, she has a job and an IRA, and she has some money now. And so I asked her when we first launched this partnership with Free Will, hey, do you have a will yet? And she said no. And we were in a bar because that's what you do with your 20-something daughter. She wants to go to a bar. And on her phone in 10 minutes, she did her will using Free Will. And all she had to do was then print it and then have a couple witnesses sign it. Completely legal in Washington. So a lot of folks can address not having a will right away. What I've learned in the last 6 months, there's been 2 different situations where folks who have passed away didn't understand that the beneficiaries that you name override whatever you have written in the will. And so in one case, there was a husband, a second wife. He said in his will very clearly he wanted this one particular set of assets to go to his 2 sons. The beneficiary, he had named the second wife. And so the money, millions.
So we're talking here about, for example, in a brokerage account or in an IRA or something like that, where they really do press you to name beneficiaries as part of the process of setting up these accounts.
Exactly.
And so it's very hard if you, I mean, as an amateur, as many of us are, it's very hard to resist that, right? To try to figure out some way to direct people to your estate. And I don't know what the tax consequences are if you name your estate as the beneficiary.
Well, and that's exactly the thing, especially now that we have such a high estate tax in Washington. The goal is to move as much money out of your estate as possible. And so by naming a beneficiary, that money is never counted as part of the estate. It goes right to the beneficiary. In this particular sad case, the 2 sons actually were not given the assets that were intended by the dad before he passed. And then
So to clarify that, the real misstep there was to not go back to those accounts, the
exactly.
brokerage accounts, and make sure that that's really as much a part of your estate planning as any will would be in this state anyway.
100%. Yes, because a lot of people have their assets in real estate and in these brokerage accounts or in other things that aren't just a standard bank account or their property that's in their name, right? So trust, same thing. You need to have all the documents put together um, and have the right folks named in a trust. We've all heard of situations where somebody didn't update their beneficiaries and the money went to the first wife instead of going to the second wife or whatever that looks like. And so it's, nobody wants to think about their death. Nobody wants to think about, what can happen after that. But the reality is if you want to take care of the people and the pets and the causes that you love, you just have to spend a few minutes and put together your estate plans. And um, so that's what this next week is National Estate Planning Awareness Week. And so this is a great opportunity to just spend a few minutes and think through these things. And again, on Sunday, on the October 19th, we have a session that is co-hosted by Carrie Eastman, who's one of our local estate planning attorneys. She's amazing. And the Kitsap Unitarian Universalist Fellowship has been a great partner. We do these twice a year or so. And so they're partnering with us so that we can get the word out to as many people as possible so that they can learn what they might want to consider as they're doing their estate plans.
So it is challenging, I think, for a lot of people to think about what those first steps are. It may be the idea of thinking about, okay, where do I have assets before I
Yeah,
go to talk to a state attorney or a CPA and think about, okay, have I named everywhere that there are assets, the property, the CDs, the all those things that you may not think about, and just make a list of all those what where they're because that's where you're going to make your decisions about those estates,
for
state
sure.
distributions, and then do you when you're trying to think about that as a whole picture, do you have guidance for people about thinking about their um, how to measure philanthropy? I know that we have talked with your organization before about leaving 10% for Kitsap.
Yep.
Is that still a program that you're promoting?
Yeah, we're doing it a little bit more directly now. The Leave 10 program is an incredible idea because of course there's this great wealth transfer underway between 2017 and 2067. Something like $102 billion in Kitsap County is going to transfer hands. And so the Leave 10 idea was to promote the idea that we should leave 10% to whatever your favorite causes are. You choose whatever makes you happy. And that was great. But what we learned through that process is that there are a lot of nonprofits who just, 47% of our nonprofits are all volunteer led. And there are a lot of nonprofits that just aren't equipped to help promote planned giving to their donors and their volunteers. And so that's why we're really pushing in now and doing all this extra education and providing tools for nonprofits so that they have the language and the skills. It's like a plug and play system that we're providing to them so that they can promote planned giving to their own donors and volunteers. And the challenge is that, only 8% nationally folks leave cause in their will. But half of those who do it because the charity asked them to. Something they loved asked them to leave them in their will. And so what we recommend is that as you're putting together your list of your assets, also spend time thinking about, what are the values that have driven you in your life and what are the things that you most care about and what's the legacy that you want to leave? Maybe food security is your thing, or maybe it's international relief, or maybe it's the environment. And so once you identify those big cause areas, then it helps you figure out what you might want to support as your final legacy.
And when people are starting to look at this, do you have advice or guidance about how to go about choosing professionals that might help you after you've done the legwork of actually putting together the material so you're not going in empty-handed?
Yes. Well, and so, all different professionals all have their own workbooks that they ask people to fill out once you engage them. We certainly keep a list of folks that we have heard over and over and over that folks have been very pleased with, and we're happy to share that list with anyone that is interested. There are literally hundreds of professional advisors in Kitsap who are ready and eager to help folks put together their estate plans.
I see Tom and Ed and Jake are all here. Tom, do you have a question?
Yeah, I have a comment. Our advisor is Dorothy Foster,
Yeah.
who's been very generous providing time. When I was with the foundation, she put on seminars for us and also with the senior center. But I moved out here from Ohio, and when I came out here, I still own property in Ohio, and I own, boats and tractors, and she pointed out to me that I need to get that out of my, don't pass with anything in your name in Ohio because it'll go into probate, and that's the last thing you want to do is have probate slowing everything up. If you own things in another state, and I've pretty well managed to get that taken care of, but it's important, and it makes a difference. And just one other comment, which hopefully you'll touch on this. I saw a couple of days ago that the IRA might change in terms of the RMD.
Mhm.
They're going to raise or lower the rate. You're only going to be able to give away like 2,300, 23,000, I guess. Yeah.
So your RMD is the required minimum distribution, which I think now it's 71 and a half. Um, in your IRA, is that the right age, Tina?
So
Yeah, I
it's
think
70 and a half. And so people have a required minimum distribution. I think it's 73, you have to start taking it. But at 70 and a half, you can make what's called a qualified charitable distribution. And Tom, as of right now, it's 108,000 a year. So there might be something coming down the pike, but that has not been approved yet. So
Yeah.
this is why this time period between now and the end of 2025 is so critical, because the federal tax laws change January 1st. And so thinking about the required minimum distributions, thinking about bunching gifts in order to itemize, like perhaps starting a donor advised fund, because the deductibility that you'll have January 1st is basically cut in half for a lot of gifts, as opposed to what you would have in 2025. This is a really significant tax change.
So now you're talking about a federal
Federal,
shift.
correct.
And can you repeat what you just said?
Sure. So in 2026, the deductibility of the deductibility of charitable gifts that you make decreases significantly. Of course, it all depends on the size of the gift and the size of your estate and so forth. But as a general rule, we are recommending to folks that you move your charitable donations into 2025 if that's possible. And you can do that by giving to a charity. You can set up a designated fund at a community foundation or some other organization. You could set up a donor advised fund so that you can have the money available. You get the immediate tax benefit, but then you can give the gifts out at a later date. So there's lots of different tools to address this. And of course, there's professional advisors that can help figure it out. And there's also a handful of folks, I think there's 6 of us now in Kitsap that are called Chartered Advisors in Philanthropy. And so our specialty, it's like a certified financial planner, but in giving away your money. And so our specialty is in helping people minimize their tax burden and then maximize the impact that they have on whatever causes that they love.
Thank you.
Sure.
Jake, did you have something you wanted to jump in here with? Just need to unmute yourself. Thank you.
Something that you also have to consider too are the things, what to do with stuff. So one of the things that we did that is in our will, but is we have an inventory that's part of the estate plan, but we created a master list, and this saved us so much time and headache trying to figure out everything. Instead, we've created a percentage scheme where you could actually name individuals. And so at the end, when there's the remainder of the residuary, or if the house is sold or whatever, there's a scheme for distribution for our estate attorney and our DPOA for finances to be able to do that. And it made it so much easier instead of agonizing over who to give this thing to or this thing to, or how to divvy up the house and all that.
So Jake, you threw in another acronym, DPOA.
Oh, I'm sorry. Power. That was
Power.
all new. I always thought of a POA. Now it's the DP, the Durable Power of Attorney for Finances. So 2 powers of attorney. One is for our healthcare and one is for the financial stuff.
Yeah, that's really, really good advice. And then I was the executor for both my parents' will, and my mom was so great because she said to everyone, "What is it that you want?" Because she didn't want to say, "Well, this painting should go to that kid," because she doesn't even know if that kid wants that painting. And so we put together a color-coded because I am who I am, a color-coded sticker system where if you wanted something, you just put the pink Tina on the back of it. And then in her will, she actually wrote, and this made life really easy for me as an executor, that if 2 or more people wanted the same thing, we'd have a deck of cards and they draw a card. Whoever had the highest card got the thing. So it took a lot of the emotional burden off of me, and kept, I think, our sibling relationships better, because I didn't have one sibling mad because I gave that one the silver. It was like, nope, the card said what you wanted. Go ahead.
One of the things that I did, because I'm me, an old teacher who organizes everything, I created like it's like a catalog of our stuff, took photos and inventory of the significant items in the garage that I hadn't already packed in boxes and shipped off. And as we had each of the granddaughters and had them up, I said, you don't get to leave till you look through the catalog and write love notes. And it was so helpful because I would never have guessed some of the things that meant something to them. So
Right.
it allowed us then to go through and actually designate specific bequest items and then indicate those things and that should be donated to charities and things like that. But
Yeah,
anyway,
and then what a lovely
workbook.
experience. Yeah, because then you got to share stories. Like in my case, my mom had the frosting knife that my grandma used to make all our birthday cakes. Really, I didn't care what else I got. I really wanted that thing. It's gonna make me cry, but you know, you just don't know. And what a beautiful experience to be able to have those conversations. But in order to have that, you have to admit that at some point you're gonna pass away, and something needs to happen with your estate.
Well, the good thing about talking about it though is by the time we got finished talking about all this stuff, they were all laughing. So it was all good.
Yeah,
Not scary
yeah.
to talk about it anymore. And the other thing about doing it that way is they recognize that, and we just said, you know, some of you, maybe all of you want the same thing. Just understand that we've stepped back. We've got the overall picture.
Right.
And so we've done it as fairly as we could, and we care about you all and understand that sometimes you may not get exactly what you want, but what we are giving you is something that we know you like, and it's because we love you. And that was, what can they say?
That's
Well,
just
and Jake,
beautiful.
the other, yes, it is beautiful. And the other thing that you noted there was that often once we break the ice about these conversations, they become less threatening, less
Yes,
scary,
yeah.
and more, and there's an opportunity for love to break through a little bit. So,
Yeah.
Well, I know Reed understands this because we talk to everybody we know about what our plans are for the end of life. And I think it makes it easier for everybody when you've done that.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
The power of attorney is really important. Like my father had a stroke, and we had to have someone had to have the power of attorney. I don't know if I set it up for my mother or my sister, but it's critical. You have joint ownership of things they have to sign off on, so it's really
yeah,
important.
and also with healthcare, which is the other thing that
Yep.
Jake mentioned.
Yeah.
And these are both, issues where you're not able to take care of your matters, but you're still with us. So that's, above the grave, as it were. But still very important to set those things up and then think about, obviously, it's a different person who's your executor. Could be the same person, I guess, but
Yeah.
a different role.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Really, there's 4 essential documents that everyone should have. And one is the durable power of attorney for health. One's the durable power of attorney for finances. In our case, we split that because my mom knew I wasn't going to be able to ever get to a moment where I could pull a plug, but I could handle all the financial stuff. And the other is any advanced medical directives you might have, a living will. Like, do you want ice chips in your final moments? My mom wanted to have Elvis played. As in her passing. And so we did that. Of course, your will. And the other thing people often don't think about, but you have a right to do, and that is write a letter of instruction that lets people know the context for your will. Why, like, what's your life story, and why are you leaving things the way that you are? And also, you can choose how you want to be buried, cremated. If you want a memorial service, you don't want. That's your choice. And so, if you put those things in writing, then that helps your family and the folks who are grieving you walk through those very sad days.
And I'll just throw in here, because this was my dad's choice, and I thought it surprised me, but in a good way, that he donated his remains to the University of Washington Medical Center.
Oh, good.
And he thought that that would be a good way to help people who are learning how to be caregivers in the future or whatever, doctors in training. Um, so that's another option, one of the many options, but there are, and there are more than there used to be.
Yeah.
And we've talked about that a little bit here on other programs. So you're going to be going over some of this material, but mostly focusing on the sort of decision point that we're at when you meet on Sunday in Bremerton at the Universalist Unitarian Church, right?
Correct. Yeah. And so we'll walk people through, and of course, we'll send out the slide deck afterwards. Folks can ask any question. It's a completely safe space. Nothing is recorded. Nobody's selling anything. If I'm going to be completely transparent, I am going to strongly encourage people to leave whatever causes they love in their wills, because we know that without the nonprofits in Kitsap, our community would be a completely different place than it is now. So if people care about the environment, about the arts, about education, about food security, whatever it is that they love and they want to make sure that they continue to support after their passing, I'm going to encourage folks to do that. There's one other thing I'd like to talk about, and that is appreciated assets.
Okay.
There are lots of ways that folks can save significant money on capital gains tax and instead direct that money to the causes that they love. And so if you have a lot of appreciated assets, that could include stocks, of course, it could include property, it could include interest in family held businesses. There are tools that we can use that are, of course, 100% legal that can, instead of just having the money go to the government, you can support food security or your local food bank or the senior center. So whatever it is that you love so much. So it's a good thing to look at those things. And there are also tools that are trust. Now, for these, you need to for sure bring in a professional advisor. But there's ways that you can pass significant wealth from one generation to another. One's called the Charitable Remainder Trust, another's called the Charitable Lead Trust. And basically what that means is the principal goes into the trust. Let's say you did a lead trust for a certain number of years, 10 or 20 years, you could give the interest to whatever charity that you like. And then at the end of that time period, the principal is going to go to the beneficiaries, whoever you have named, your grandkids, for instance. So there's lots and lots of tools available. But if you don't know what your assets are, you haven't thought about how you want to leave your estate, and if you haven't engaged a team of folks who can help you, then you're not going to be able to use any of those tools. And then the state will get to decide what happens with your assets.
So if you aren't able to make it to the event on the 19th, it sounds like Kitsap, like you, Tina, and folks at Kitsap Community Foundation are certainly willing to talk about this anytime.
Of course. Yeah, we're always here. This is what we do. We love to help donors connect with the causes that they love, and we like to help nonprofits do their missions better. The Kitsap Regional Library is also, they've also partnered with Free Will, because frankly, the first couple of bequests that we got through our Free Will partnership went right to the library. And so they are offering these sessions, I think about once a quarter. And my guess is, I haven't looked at Bainbridge's calendar lately. My guess is that they are doing those. I heard recently that Dorothy Foster came to the senior center. Is that true, in the last few months, and offered one?
That's correct. She has
Yeah.
over the last few years given different presentations, either about we did that one with Barn, with the Bainbridge Artisans Resource
Oh,
Network
great.
most recently, but about, she's talked about this, what I joked about earlier, 10 feet over or 6 feet over and 6 feet under, the idea that there are decisions that you need to make about your life and how you're going to be helped out if you aren't able to take care of yourself, and then the decisions after you die.
Yeah, that's great. And so anyone can get on our website at any time. If they want to talk to me personally, I'm happy to do that. If they'd like to connect with other folks who have this chartered advisor and philanthropy designation, I'm happy to make that contact. And we can just talk through ideas. Tom knows I'm pretty accessible.
Great. Tina O'Brien, the executive director of Kitsap Community Foundation. They're meeting on Sunday, October 19th at the Kitsap Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, which is in Bremerton. The address is 4418 Perry Avenue. They're meeting at 2:30. And so I hope you get a good turnout. We also, unfortunately, are going to be doing a city council candidates forum at the same time
Oh,
here.
good for you.
If that doesn't, if the Bainbridge City Council doesn't float your boat, then you can definitely go to Bremerton and learn about the decisions about Washington's estate tax and the challenges of 2026.
Yep, and we offer these twice a year. We usually do one in around June, July, and one in around October. So if folks miss this one, they're welcome to attend the next.
Okay, well, Tina, thank you so much for your time. Thank you, Tom and Jake, for great questions. We'll
Thank you.
see you soon. Bye-bye.